In the top stories, CDC in the United States issues travel advisory for St. Kitts and Nevis. COVID-19 deaths in Brazil continue to rise, and France and the United States leading the charge to assist Beirut recovery efforts. Hello and welcome to the ZIZ Midday Newscast. Today is Monday, the 10th of August, 2020. I'm Jason Davis. Nationally, the Center for Disease Control, or CDC, in the United States has issued a warning that the COVID-19 risk in St. Kitts and Nevis is high. On its website, www.cdc.gov, on August 6, the CDC recommended that travelers avoid all non-essential international travel to St. Kitts and Nevis. It said, quote, "Travelers at increased risk for severe illness from COVID-19 should consider postponing all travel, including essential travel to St. Kitts and Nevis. If you get sick in St. medical care, resources may be limited. If you get sick with COVID-19 or test positive for COVID-19, even if you have no symptoms, while abroad, you may be isolated or not be permitted to return to the United States until you have fully recovered from your illness," end quote. The CDC's Level 3 high-risk warning was also issued for other countries across the Caribbean, including Anguilla, Curacao, Grenada, and Montserrat. Persons found not wearing a face mask in public can now be fined a minimum of $500. That's according to Superintendent Cromwell Henry during the August 8 edition of the National Emergency Operations Center COVID-19 briefing. A public place is defined as an indoor or outdoor area, whether privately or publicly owned, to which the public has access by right or by invitation, expressed or implied, whether by payment of money or not. Such places include shopping centers, supermarkets, pharmacies, banks, utility departments, bars, drinking places and restaurants, hotels, educational institutions, hospitals, religious establishments, public transportation, community centers, government offices, public markets, and other places or buildings of all types accessible to the public. Anyone who refuses to pay the fine within 10 business days from the date of the notice will go before the court, where the magistrate has the power to increase the $500 fine to up to $5,000 and 6 months imprisonment. The superintendent said persons who suffer from a disability, cognitive impairment, dementia, asthma, chronic obstructive lung disease, or other similar health conditions, as well as children under the age of 3 and persons within a private space, including a private vehicle, are exempted from wearing masks. Superintendent Henry noted that the penalties can be avoided if persons simply follow the rules and regulations. In other news, Prime Minister Dr. The Honorable Timothy Harris will be updating citizens and residents of St. Kitts and Nevis on matters of national interest when he hosts his next press conference on Tuesday, August 11 at 10 a.m. The press conference will be held in the conference room at the National Emergency Management Agency in Limekiln. The Prime Minister's press conference will be broadcast live on ZIZ Radio, ZIZ TV Channel 5, and it will also be streamed live on ZIZ's Facebook and YouTube platforms. And as we wrap up local news, members of Parliament will gather at government headquarters on Thursday for the next sitting of National Assembly. According to a notice out of government headquarters, the meeting will be held on Thursday, the 13th of August at 10 a.m. The order paper and other papers will be distributed at a later date. ZIZ Broadcasting Corporation will provide live coverage on ZIZ Radio 96.1 FM, ZIZ TV Channel 5, and live streaming on our website www.zizonline.com and our YouTube and Facebook pages. Moving now to news on the regional scene. Brazil is the second most impacted country by COVID-19 with more than 3 million cases and 100,000 deaths. More in this Euronews report.
1,000 red balloons took to the skies over Rio de Janeiro's famous Copacabana beach in memory of Brazil's staggering 100,000 deaths from COVID-19. The protest was organised by the organisation Rio de Paz, or Rio for Peace, and staged as a criticism of the way the government has managed the health crisis. This is an act of citizenship. It hurts me to be here. It hurts me to be here, showing that my son will not be on my side on Father's Day. He will be spiritually. And it hurts me a lot to see people passing by and saying that this is a lie, that this is fake news, that this is an act of terror. But the soaring death rate still hasn't put some Brazilians off risky behaviour. Hundreds of football fans parted in Sao Paulo to celebrate Palmeiras' league victory. The gathering was against regulations and few people were wearing face masks. Others, though, do try to influence people to be more careful. On the streets of Formiga, a man dressed as the Grim Reaper warns of the dangers of not wearing a mask to help slow down the spread of the virus ripping through the country.
In Jamaica, the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information has been holding a number of back-to-school parent engagement sessions. These are designed to discuss the issues faced and offer solutions. More in this CVM News report.
Preparation is already being made for the back-to-school period amid COVID-19 concerns. While parents are not against the idea of sending their children back into the classroom environment, they are citing several challenges and concerns.
So we don't have data yet. We have to buy data. We have to go online, go take out service.
What are the measures in place for the safety, the crowd control? That's my main issue. We need a lot of funds, you know. The money issue back to school is so difficult, you know, to buy the books, uniforms, shoes and such like.
The Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, in partnership with the National Parenting Support Commission and National Parent-Teacher Association of Jamaica, has planned a series of web sessions to address these concerns. Matters related to the blended approach were discussed at the recent session.
Some schools will operate normally. So we have in excess of 900 schools, public schools in Jamaica. And in my initial conversation with some of our parents from Region 1, we would have indicated at the time that 411 schools will operate their normal school operation. Since then, we have gone back to the drawing board because, as I have said to many of my parents, that our thrust really is to have more face-to-face engagement.
Adding to this, the National Mathematics Coordinator, Dr. Tamika Benjamin, notes that tertiary institutions have agreed to delay the start for new students for the new academic year.
Rework the academic calendar to allow teaching to go on into December and then do their end of semester examinations in January, and that will apply to the new students.
Khadija Thomas, CVM Live.
Internationally, France and the United Nations are leading an international donor conference to pool resources for Beirut following last week's deadly explosion. More in this Euronews report.
Many blame official negligence for the blast that has thrown the country into chaos and resulted in years of frustration with the government boiling over. The latest resignation over the catastrophe was Lebanon's Information Minister, Manal Abdel Samad. She apologised for being unable to fulfil the aspirations of the Lebanese people. As clearing up continues, the international community has been looking at how to help the country get back on its feet. At a virtual conference, French President Emmanuel Macron called on world leaders to fast-track humanitarian and financial aid to Lebanon. Over 30 participants have pledged help so far for a credible and independent investigation into the Beirut explosion. But they made it clear that any support for recovery will have to come with reforms demanded by protesters. Meanwhile, a Russian plane carrying rescuers, doctors and specialist equipment has arrived in Lebanon to help with the aftermath of the blast. The country will need many more such flights to fully recover.
Pakistan's government is lifting partial lockdown measures enforced since March as part of its coronavirus response. Even at the height of the outbreak, many people ignored social distancing rules. And while the number of confirmed infections has fallen in recent weeks, official figures may be inaccurate. Al Jazeera's Zen Basravi reports from Karachi, Pakistan.
Summer rainstorms in Pakistan's most populous city did a better job of keeping most people indoors than the partial lockdown being lifted this week. The port city of Karachi has been the hardest hit by the coronavirus. The government says infection rates have dropped nationwide and it's safe to resume public life. But not everyone agrees. Rizwan Abdul Sami is a teacher. When the COVID-19 outbreak closed schools, he began a free service to supply coronavirus patients with oxygen cylinders to help them breathe.
Ground reality is that corona exists at extreme level in Pakistan. Pakistani community, population of Pakistan, and people are not taking it seriously. Rather, they are not taking it as a reality.
He normally has dozens of tanks, but in the last week they've all been sent out. He's down to his last two. A sign, he says, that people are still getting sick, and it's too soon to lift the lockdown. But months into the crisis, even partial restrictions on public life seem impossible to enforce and easy to ignore. The government push to ease restrictions is politically popular. And people whose livelihoods have suffered say it's also necessary.
Measures taken because of the coronavirus have completely shut down business. I don't have the words to explain how much loss there has been. For poor people, it's been devastating.
It's a view many customers share.
The economy of our country is very important. You see, we are from a country where everything depends on the economy, and I agree that the coronavirus is also a threat, but if we take precautions along with coronavirus, I think the economy should open and we should allow our people to work.
During recent public holidays, precautions were not a priority, and now people are gearing up for another major public event, the country's Independence Day.
Markets like this are all over the country. Pakistan's government says for the sake of the economy, it's important to keep them open. But as far as health experts are concerned, crowded public areas where people are not wearing masks, where there is no social distancing, these are the perfect places for the virus to thrive.
Pakistanis are quick to say years of hard living has made them more resilient to the virus than most. But there is also the fact that there are too few tests and too many people. And with so many taking the threat lightly, medical experts say the real number of COVID-19 infections is likely much higher than official tallies. Zain Basravi, Al Jazeera, Karachi.
And now for the weather. Present weather shows partly cloudy skies with a moderate breeze of 13 miles per hour from the east. Temperature for today is 28 degrees Celsius or 82 degrees Fahrenheit. Seas are moderate with waves of 4 to 5 feet. The weather for today and tonight will be partly cloudy with a 30% or low chance of showers. Sunrise today will be at 6:38 p.m. and sunrise tomorrow at 5:52 a.m. And that brings us to the end of the ZIZ Midday Newscast. Join us this evening for these stories and more in detail. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Jason Davis.